Hey guys, Sai, welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, one-stop shop for interviews, podcasts, content on a whole variety of subjects. Got shows on mental health, football, films, TV, wrestling, music, and more. Today's show is the second in a series on conspiracy theories. It's just a bit of a more light-hearted podcast compared to some of the mental health ones we've done. Today's show is the first one where we're focusing on a particular conspiracy after we did the introduction last week. And it's the granddaddy of all conspiracy theories, which is aliens. So it should be a bit of fun. We'll discuss various aspects of aliens, Area 51, crop circles, Roswell, and alike. Thank you all for joining me. My guest for the trip down the rabbit hole of paranoia and government conspiracies is Rhys. All right, Rhys.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Sai.
What's going on? So, just we had Rhys's camera working till literally about 30 seconds before we started recording, and then it just went off. But we're still looking into it. We'll sort it out at some point. It is what it is. Can't do nothing about
it. Issues.
Yeah, mate. After yesterday of recording a whole interview with a ex-footballer and then finding out none of the audio recorded, I could cope with no camera, mate, to be honest. So, before we get to it, like I did last week, just a quick disclaimer, because people get a bit arsey and a bit offended. So we just want to point out that just because we discuss particular theories, particular conspiracies, doesn't mean we believe them to be true, or we agree with the points of view which we might present, or the evidence that we might present, or people who believe it. We're simply just going to discuss them because we find them entertaining, interesting, and find out, or we'll look at the evidence which is presented by people who champion certain conspiracies. Aliens and like is not it didn't really apply so much the disclaimer to that, but some of the others will do. You know, some people will moan, some people will criticize, but you know, we got if they're interesting to talk about all different points of view. Got to talk about these things. So, aliens. I suppose the first question, Rhys, are aliens real?
My opinion on this, there's got to be some other form of life out there. There's got to be.
Yeah, when you consider
the universe, there's got to be.
Like when you consider Earth is like a tiny speck compared to all the other planets and whatnot in the solar system and in the whole universe and all that, even things that they haven't discovered yet. Earth is like a tiny speck, and if we've got all this sort of technology and intelligent life, if you want to call it that, I find it very difficult to believe that there's nothing like that anywhere else. I find it exceptionally unlikely, to be honest.
And I find it even more difficult to believe with, as you just said, all the technology and everything we've got, and they haven't discovered proof.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's we just touched on it last week, didn't we, with governments and the things they don't tell you. I think it's difficult to say whether they've had, there's some people who think they've had contact. They had contact years ago, and there's all types of treaties in place with presidents of, United States presidents of years gone by who agreed treaties with them and stuff like that. But I mean, you until they come out and say it, you're sort of going on whistleblowers and conspiracy theories.
There's never been hard evidence of any of it, is there?
I think, for me, like when you look at like some of the Aztec drawings and stuff like that, and inside the pyramids and the temples and stuff like that, and you see like flying saucers in those paintings, and they're from thousands of years ago. That says to me that they've been in contact, because that says to me that it's not a new thing. people thinking that there's something up in space. And
Well,
whereas
you look at the way the Aztecs and some of them have built and aligned their temples. I mean, the buildings they built and things, it's an engineering miracle how they could build them buildings in the first place with the tools and resources they had. But not just that. I think it's the Aztecs. They've got 7 temples. Basically, if you shone a light through the roof of each temple, each of these 7 temples, the lights will meet in a point in the sky. How the hell could they have done that? I mean, I've heard talk of they had a man basically hanging from a hot air balloon as such. No way. There is no way on this earth you could align all them points without modern technology.
well, I think it would be hard enough to do with modern technology, with things like laser pointers and all this type of jazz. But when you're talking about like when things like temples and pyramids were made, they didn't have anything which could fly. They didn't have cranes. They didn't have cameras. They didn't have like technological compasses and whatever you want to say. They didn't have the tools or the ability to do it, which makes you think that they had some help. And like we touched on this a bit last week. Obviously, with the pyramids, like I know technically they could have built them, and it would have taken years and years and years just because of the sheer size of them and the sheer size of those bricks, like the rocks which make up those pyramids. They're so big. You're talking like groups of people would have had to carry them, or they'd have had to,
There's no way a group of people could have held them bricks and positioned them in the way they do without machinery and equipment.
Well, exactly that, and you know more than me when it comes to sort of bricks and stuff. But like, I'd imagine that particularly that size, but to get them all lined up so perfectly on every single pyramid without any sort of spirit level or whatever else you may use is very, very difficult. And then when you add in the size and the heat and
Even to just make one of them blocks without tape measures, anything like that, there's probably not a person alive now who could make all them blocks to fit by hand without tape measures or anything. So how the hell did they do it? Come on.
They're all exactly the same size, like to the millimeter.
And it's the positioning of them as well, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's phenomenal work.
Yeah, so I think me and you are both on board that they had some sort of help, and the fact that if we're assuming that they had some sort of contact with some type of being or people who had technology that no one else on the planet had at that time, where did those people come from? Like even now, where the governments and people have got secret technology, I would have thought the secret technology that those people had, or their governments, or the people in charge had, it was nowhere near what you need to achieve that. So it had to come from somewhere, somebody. So yeah.
Oh, totally. There's only 2 answers to that. It's either extraterrestrial life has guided them, or somebody has gone back in time. Aliens is the more believable answer right now.
Yeah, you say that. Time travel, you never know.
But when you've only got 2 answers, you've got to pick one of them. There is no way on this earth the people of that time could have pulled off the engineering marvels they did without machinery, equipment, and an alien foreman.
God, yeah. Someone tell, and it's not just the tools and the equipment as well, and the ability to use those tools and use that equipment, but also the ability to design, like you say, the light so that it all shines to the same place. To design,
you need computer programs. You need everything. It's impossible.
So, have you ever had an experience like an abduction experience or seen a UFO?
If you heard I've been probed, it's a lie.
I've seen it written on a toilet somewhere, I'm sure.
I think I wrote it, mate, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. There was one time before. There was me and one of my friends. I won't mention his name. But we'd have been about 13 or 14 years old. We were over one of the local parks, not drinking cider. And we were just lying on the floor the one day. We looked up, and he said to me, "Look at that there." And in the sky, there was a triangle of 3 lights. Perfect triangle, just 3 round lights. And we were just staring at it. And all of a sudden, it moved with such immense speed to... It must have gone 20, 30 miles across the sky in seconds.
How
and then
big was it?
3 times and then disappeared.
Was it quite big? Like bigger than a jet, like a fighter jet?
You wouldn't be able to percept how big it was because it was a black, dark sky and there was just 3 lights, so you didn't know how far away it was. You couldn't have judged anything other than the speed that this thing moved.
So, one of the shows I want to do in the future is on these ships, which you just described, basically. But I want to do a separate show on them because there's loads and loads of evidence and radars. And Rich Hall, who I mentioned to you last week, did a really good documentary. I can't remember what it was called, but like about these flying triangles. And they showed up on Belgium radar systems in, I think it was the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, and they had all the Air Force going after them, and they pulled off all these maneuvers that were just, like out of this world. But because of
when they were trialing, was it the B-51?
Yeah, that's it. I think it's the B-51. I was TR-3B. It's called.
I remember a brief story about the triangular craft before.
Yeah, so these TR-3Bs, they've been spotted all over Europe, especially, but in Britain, and some of them are massive. Like I'm talking, like football field size, and they move at the speed of light. And what they've got is like these. So like the 3 lights you were talking about, they're like 3 balls, like a ball in each corner, which balances the craft out, and it's like a gravitational what's the word? But yeah, so basically, rather than using like jet engines and stuff like that, it uses this gravitational field.
It uses Earth's magnetic force, basically.
Yeah, and and what I'll do is when we do that show, is I'll send you the documentary to watch because it's so good, mate. It's one of the best I've seen. Because it's one of the best I've seen. One, because he, as a documentary maker, he's so good because he only bases his documentaries. He only uses like provable facts and witness testimony. Like it's not like what you see on like the BBC or Sky, where a lot of it's like hearsay and like innuendo and stuff like that. And there was like they had the radar and there's so many people have seen him, especially in Britain, but also in, like I say, Belgium, and I think France was one of them, and they're seen quite regularly. But because they can move so quick, it's very difficult people find it difficult to get them on camera because they're just gone in seconds, and they're so big. You're almost like, because they can move so fast, you're almost like, did I see that, or did I just imagine it, type thing.
And the thing is, there's so many hoax videos out there as well.
Yeah, God, do you know how many?
People
you think?
To be honest, I'll open my hands up. I made a hoax video before. used the Chinese lantern. It was a pitch black sky, so you couldn't see anything other than this Chinese lantern. And all I did was move the phone quite quickly, left and right, and it actually looks like a flying craft moving fast.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how simple it is. You know,
And
you imagine someone who's good with technology and computers and things, they can draw up anything they want. Look at the films we watch.
Well, I was going to say, like what we were talking about with Marvel the other night. Like the graphics are so good and so convincing. I think unless you know what you're doing from a video point of view, where you can like download a video and you can go into it and you can go into like equivalent of Photoshop and you can see like which bits have been added in. So like with a photo, if you faked a photo and then you sent it to me, I'd be able to go into Photoshop and change the contrast and colors, and you can see like which bit's been pasted into the photo and blended in and stuff. Like I wouldn't have to do it with a video, but you know, obviously there's people who can do it. But I mean, in terms of people putting stuff on like YouTube and stuff, which people then goes viral, doesn't it? You see so many, and it's very difficult then to pick what you think is fake, what you think is real, you know.
It can make believers non-believers from watching too much.
You got definitely, mate. And I think as well as then when you like you've got, is it real, is it fake, and then when you add in like government disinformation, and one thing when I was reading up and watching up about Area 51. It's like when the rumours of Area 51 first started sort of coming up, and it was mainly people thought it was for like to do with Roswell and to do with nuclear testing. The president come out and they came out with like 3 or 4 different cover stories where they said one, and then when that got blown up by the papers or by Russia, I think one of them got sort of caught out. They just lied some more. And then eventually they sort of admitted to it being there. But for years they used to just come out with like, oh yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. There's no base there. There's nothing. And it's like you go there and there's big fences.
That, though. They'll keep feeding you the lie until it gets exposed, and then they bend the truth, and it all becomes believable again.
Yeah. And that's why I don't believe
anything. With the Roswell incident, 1947, I think it was. So at the time, to communicate things around the world, it couldn't be done instantly, like with the internet and things nowadays. So when they first released, you know, soldiers had found a round metallic object, papers had already printed it before the cover-up came back out. Oh no, it was a weather balloon, and that's how he started.
Yeah, no, I believe it was on the radio, I think, wasn't it? And then it was in the papers before they were able to get a handle on it. So I suppose in today's sort of way of looking at it, it's almost like something crashed, and people with camera phones got there before the military got there to say it's a weather balloon or whatnot. But I mean, it's different these days because the radar systems and the detection systems that the military and the governments have got are so high tech. Like, as good as you think they are, they're probably another 10, 15, 20 years ahead of that.
Well, to be fair, the radar can't be that good. Look at 9/11.
Oh, don't start me on that now. Because they let that happen. But I'm not getting into that now. I'll be here for an hour just to moaning about that. So if you haven't been abducted, it's good to hear, and you've seen a triangular craft. I haven't seen anything myself. However, I've heard lots of rumours about St. Athan, just outside Cardiff, having some links to UFOs, and apparently in the late 80s they had a specialist team that would go to crash sites. And this team was based in St. Athan. There was an incident in Brecon where there was a crash, and again, funny enough, Rich D. Hall interviewed this guy who was part of this team like tracked him down, living in the valley somewhere, and he like kind of spoke to him, and he had radiation poisoning and cancer and all this stuff, where they had guarded this wreckage and just been told, stand by there, guard it, you know, don't let anyone come near it unless they've got the specific clearance. And he was riddled with like cancer and stuff from radiation poisoning. And then another incident which happened in Bracken was that they found a car with, it was parked up top Bracken Beacons, all the doors open, lights on, no one around, no one in. And I think, and going off the top of my head for this, but I think they found one of the people from the car a few weeks later in London, completely disheveled and didn't know what was going on. So I think, you know, I never thought of it until I'd sort of seen these documentaries. I didn't really think of Wales and sort of Cardiff and stuff where we live as something, you know, as something like, I didn't really associate that with like UFOs or aliens or anything like that. Yeah. And then when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's like up the road. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah, that was a bit eye-opening, I got to be honest.
Yeah, there's been quite a few things up in the beacons, haven't there, regarding aliens?
Yeah, and I think, I don't know whether it's just because there's mountains or whether it's quite a quiet area. So obviously, whether it's aliens or it's secret military craft or whatever it may be, because obviously the military do a lot of training exercises up there. And I'm not saying that these instances would be military training exercises. However, a military training exercise is a very good excuse to cut it off from civilians if you want to go and collect a wreckage or you want to investigate something, whatever it may be. And like Bracken's quite a quiet area anyway, especially when you get up to the beacons. So I mean, I'm not sure if that's the reason, or if it's like I say, there's rumours about St. Athens. I don't know if these teams are still in place, but it certainly sounds like there was a team based in St. Athens.
Yeah, well, as you know, I only lived down the road from St. Athens pretty much, and when we were younger, we heard all the stories and things like this, the men in black at St. Athens, should we say.
Oh, yeah. And the Men in Black, I've got that on my list of stuff to talk about, like the real Men in Black.
Yeah.
So, what do you reckon? What was the first sort of alien conspiracy, or like the first time you remember coming across like an alien or Area 51 or just something?
The Roswell story.
I think for me, I think I came across Area 51 first. But I think Roswell was like the first one I looked into, and the first one where I heard of this sort of wreckage and crash and all this type of thing. But I got to be honest, I don't think I heard about it until, or I certainly didn't take like an interest in it until like my adult life. I don't remember. I don't remember ever thinking like about
reading books about it
when I was
I remember reading books about it when I was younger, because we didn't have Google and things like that. Pretty much. No. You know, the computers were so slow and things like that back then. It was easier to go down the library and find out. And I was a bit of a bookworm when I was younger, and I used to love the unknown. Basically, I always wanted to know what no one else did.
Yeah, well, I think that's like human nature, I think, as well, isn't it? It is like humans are curious, and when you find something you're interested in, which you think other people aren't aware of, you kind of want to find out about it and tell people about it.
Yeah.
My wife gets fed up of me telling her about conspiracy theories and 9/11 and this, that, and the other. She's like, oh, all right. She thinks she's given up trying to debate it with me. But, I I get a bit carried away sometimes. I do. So Roswell, Roswell happened in July 1947. The crash occurred about 75 miles north of Roswell, New Mexico. The object crashed on a ranch owned by the family, by the Foster family, and it was managed by someone called William McBrazel. There was a $3,000 award offered for the debris of the crashed flying saucer. I haven't got it written down, but something I read earlier, that was partly because they didn't want people to find like bits of it if it had broken off when it crashed, but also because they felt like someone may have removed some parts. So, like, say some people who discovered it may have taken away bits of it.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and you think back then, £3,000 or $3,000 was a hell of a lot of money.
Oh God!
So if you were back then as well, nobody had any idea about aliens or anything, so you wouldn't have suspected anything. So if you found something, or even if you stole one of them items, you'd return it and get that money.
Yeah, God, right. God, you would.
So, well played.
The guy who managed the farm, or the ranch, not farm, the ranch, was this William Brazel. He had found some of the debris and he collected some and took it into town and showed people, which I would assume is part of the reason that it got out on the radio and the papers. As it sounds as if this guy, something crashed on his ranch, or the ranch he was managing. So he was telling people, what's what you would do, especially without Facebook and Twitter and all these types
straight of things. Into town.
Straight into your town and tell the people in the coffee shop or the bar or whatever. And he described the debris as having symbols that were pink, purple, lavender in color, located on the I-beams. So it was like a flying saucer, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean,
or weather balloon, as they say.
Yeah. So the press release was titled so I'm assuming it says that it was released by the army base initially. So it says RAFF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region, and that was released by the army to the media. However, that soon changed to the debris was taken to Fort Worth in Texas for examination, and then they had a major General Roger Ramey claimed the debris was from a weather balloon, and that was like a few days later. And then they released a second press release, which was released by the army by someone higher up, and they claimed the debris was from a weather balloon, contradicting the first press release. The media coverage of the crash disappeared as the second story was accepted by all, which is, when you read that and you listen to that, it's mind-boggling that a flying saucer could crash. People could find it. It could be in the papers and the news. The army would issue an actual press release saying that a flying saucer was captured, and then suddenly they change the story and say, "Oh no, it was a weather balloon," as if they wouldn't have known that when they released the first press release, if it was a weather balloon or a flying saucer.
Back then, everyone's mindset was different. Now, we're more open to these things. Back then, nothing like that ever happened. So it was just totally non-believable.
Yeah, it's a weird one though, isn't it? Because like I say, like looking at it now,
nuts about and things like that back then. There was no research into it as such.
Yeah, so I think the real sort of conspiracy theories, if you like, or the research into it, they didn't really happen straight away. It took a few years. So this happened in 1947. In 1970, the major who had claimed that it was a weather balloon, his son claimed that the balloon story was a cover-up, shock horror. He claimed the balloon story was meant to conceal, obviously, the real facts that alluded to the crash. But I mean, and that's his son, who he was talking, what, 23 years later. I mean, it shows how long it took. I'm sure people looked into it before that, and I'm sure there was research and UFO sort of researchers or magazines and stuff who looked into it before that.
The thing is, with humans saying it, you've always got a question: is he telling the truth, or has he done it for money?
Yeah. Why is he saying it? Why is he coming out now? Why was it this story yesterday and now it's this story today?
Totally.
What does he get out of it? You know, maybe we're just cynical, Rhys, you know? Maybe that we should take people's word for these things.
I want to believe, but I want concrete proof. If you want me to believe the unbelievable, I need concrete proof. But I really do want to believe it. I need proof. Like, all the videos that came out all them years ago, I don't believe any of them at all, because there's no way a video like that would have escaped.
No.
Like, nowadays, it's easier. You know, you can fit a video onto a little pinhead.
Yeah,
with technology now, you can do it. But back then, they'd have had to walk out with a reel of tape or a cassette. It wouldn't have happened. It's not going to happen. So I don't believe the videos, but I do believe there was something. Purely because of the radio and press release. Yeah.
And the press release is the big one for me, because the army doesn't they don't comment on every little thing. Do you know what I mean? So if they're saying...
On the flip side, as I said again, human mindset back then, discovering aliens would have been the world's biggest discovery ever at that time.
If they weren't already around.
Was it the army and the government getting overexcited, and it really was a weather balloon, but they got overexcited thinking it was more?
Or
being devil's advocate.
Yeah, or whether maybe they were like overexcited about the discovery, released a press release in their excitement, and then the higher up said, "Oh, you can't tell people because it'll cause panic," or whatever their reasoning is for not telling people. But so I suppose there's that aspect to it too. But knowing how the army is run and how the military is run and how the government is run, I think the fact that they released a official press release saying that it was a flying saucer, to me, is a big, huge red flag and sort of worry, or something went on that day. So after the Major's son in 1970 had said it was a cover-up and whatnot, in the later on in 1970, this story sort of started to reach journalists and like proper journalists, and a journalist called Stanton T. Friedman. He actually interviewed the Major, and this revived a lot of interest within the case. And I think a lot of the earliest sort of documentaries and books, I think they came out around this time, around the 70s, which again is like, that's a good 20 years later. But, I'm sure there's thousands of books on Roswell. And
this is one of them things, though. If people can cash in on something and make money, they're going to. So a lot of it is you've got to sift through a whole lot of shit to find the golden nuggets.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you think, like, all those thousands of books which have been written on Roswell, I bet you the journalist I mentioned and the manager of the ranch and the different people who were involved, I bet they were all interviewed for those books, all got paid for every book.
Yeah.
So, whilst they might be telling the truth, not disputing that, they still made their coin out of it over the years.
I bet if you went back and
in the same story.
I bet if you went back and watched them all, say they told the same story 100 times, by the 100th time, that story will be 20 minutes longer because they'll make more money off it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Watch the first time they said it, and then the last time they said it, and see what details have changed, and see if it's remained completely the same. So interest, obviously, within that Roswell incident made to a huge rise of eyewitness accounts of flying saucers and, you know, ships and crashes and aliens and all this, because the idea had been planted then in 1947. People believed, whether the newspapers believed the government story, it was out there. Just the concept that there was flying saucer, people would start seeing stuff, and whether it's for money to sell their story and they want a quick buck, or whether it was just because people now had it in their consciousness, they were looking for it, or they were more adept or more likely to notice things in the sky which maybe they hadn't noticed before. Could be anything. And I mean, it could just be the technology had moved along and there was more secret planes and different types of craft being tested by the military. You know, obviously New Mexico is a lot of sort of desert and stuff where the military probably tested their aircrafts. And I do wonder how much of people spotting like eyewitness accounts of, oh, I saw a flying saucer, or I saw a ship, or I saw this. I think a lot of it is military.
Yeah, 99% of it, at least, you know, it's got to be us doing it, basically. But there's still that 1%. There's got to be intelligent life out there. But that leads me to believe, as they should be a higher form of intelligence, if they don't want to get spotted in the sky, they're not going to get spotted.
No,
We've got aircraft that can fly invisible, so they're bound to have things way beyond our capabilities.
No, you're right there. So there was a video released in 1995 claiming to be the footage of the autopsy, which I think that's the video you were referring to, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It aired everywhere. But later, the person who made the film, Rhys Santinelli, he admitted that it was a reconstruction of the footage that they had and lost, which makes it very difficult to believe then, doesn't it? Because
you can't believe it, can you? But did he actually release the real footage, but then got offered enough money to spin this story? It's
funny. And again, it goes back to the initial press release. You know, they went back on it, the press release at the start, so there's nothing to say that they couldn't have done the same in this instance. This guy leaked it and then changed his mind for whether it's money or threats or whatever. Just don't know. The only convincing video I've ever seen, in my eyes, of like an alien is, have you seen the one? It's in a moon documentary. I think it's called something like The Dark Side of the Moon, and it's this like British woman doing a voiceover, and they've got like this dead alien woman, or like a female dead alien on like a slab or in the ship or whatever, and it's like looks so realistic, right? And because it's in the middle of a documentary that's based just on like facts about the moon landing and different aspects of that, it makes it really believable. And this particular documentary, have you ever seen the clip where they're holding like a black sheet against the window to cover half the Earth and to make it look like they're further away when really they're actually just in orbit? This documentary, I think I'm right in saying, was the first film which sort of released that clip. So like, there's a lot of stuff in that documentary which is, you know, is legitimate, which makes it even more tricky to tell, and it does look very realistic. It's like a female alien, and yeah, that just sprung to mind anyway. So yeah, you had the autopsy which came out in 1995. They said it was reconstructed of lost footage, but hundreds of thousands of people visit Roswell every year. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just to say they've been there? Do you think it's to see if they see anything?
People go to Loch Ness. You want to see
Yeah.
them all. You know, you want the story to be believed, and you want to see it. Same as ghost hunters, things like that. Why do people go to a haunted house to see a ghost?
Yeah, I suppose it's partly to say you've been there, partly to try and prove the method, the rumor or the prove the theory, I guess.
Yeah, even the non-believers who go there and say, "I only went there to prove there's nothing there."
Yeah.
You've got to stay there for lifetimes to find if there's something there. You can't just visit there then.
Just can't visit there for an hour, can you, and expect to
No.
see it all and end all. So moving on from Roswell, you've got the Area 51, which I find fascinating. Simply the way its reputation has changed over the years. So it is indeed a military installation located about 80 miles or 129 kilometers northwest of Vegas. It's the site of a lot of secret military tests. But there's also a lot of conspiracies and myths and things about it which people are not sure of. There was a lot of nuclear testing there, and if that's not scary enough, the major sort of claim to fame, if you like, is that there was sort of extraterrestrial technology where they researched the technology there, or they back engineer crafts that they find, and they do it all here. There's been rumors of like 50 floors underground, and you go there and there's aliens just walking around, working there or whatever. There's all sorts of crazy shit from Area 51. But
Do you know the latest story I heard about Area 51? Have you ever heard of breathable liquid? Apparently, some countries are already using this basically as a torture method. Have you seen sensors deprivation chamber? Where you can't hear.
Yeah.
Imagine being inside one of them that's filled with liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you open your eyes, you're submerged in liquid, you panic, you're drowning.
Yeah.
In your head, you've convinced yourself you've drowned and you're dead, but you're still floating around in an endless space as such. But it's a breathable liquid. And apparently, so I've heard some countries are using it as a torture method already.
Jesus.
It's totally believable.
Oh, God, yeah.
There's bound to be some form of saline solution that they can do it with somehow.
Yeah, that's frightening though, isn't it? Can you imagine how terrifying that is? Like drowning, and just keep.
It's one of everyone's worst fears is drowning. And you would, if you were submerged in liquid, your brain would even convince yourself you're dead. Nobody can survive in liquid.
No, and especially because you're in that sensory deprivation chamber, completely cut off from any noise, any light, everything. You just think you were just floating in black.
You'd think you're in the afterlife.
Yeah, you just think, oh, there's nothing afterlife. It's just black.
Yeah, and then imagine like a day or two later, they pop the lid open. Morning, mate. What the?
That would mess your head, man. Big
time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at weapons and technology and things. Like they say, we're always 20 years ahead in technology with technology that's out now.
Yeah, you imagine the stuff they got there, like high-tech stuff.
Yeah.
But like the people who work there get flown in, don't they, on a special plane?
Yeah.
Which is unmarked, and they're not allowed to tell their family what they work on and all this sort of stuff. That like even the people who work on the airline or the airplane that takes them there they got to have a certain amount of clearance. Which makes it a little more laughable.
human nature's secrets will always get out.
Yeah.
You know, someone's always going to tell someone, and that's when all these theories start. You know, there's always some fact behind it somewhere.
Yeah, it's just like leaks, and there's always going to be leaks. But it makes me laugh when they stuck for so long. Oh, there's nothing there. There's no military base there. There's nothing there. There's nothing to tell. There's no secret base. There's nothing, and they stuck to that for a long time, and they blurred it off maps. They just stuck to it for ages and ages. You know, even though there's like perimeters there, if you can drive there, and there's perimeters and there's motion sensors. It's got its own private security force which patrols it. You know, it's got but there's nothing there. It's
the size of a small country.
Yeah, oh yeah, God. And like employees used to stay there for a week. I don't know if they still do. I'm sure I read somewhere that changed a few years back. But they used to fly them in like on a Sunday, and then back out the following Sunday.
Yeah.
Or they'd fly them in, sorry, like a Sunday night or a Monday morning, fly them back Friday evening, back the following weekend. That was like your commute to work. So they obviously test jets and different technology, energy weapons and things like this. And yeah, you can get to a strip.
What you want to ask yourself is, a lot of these weapons, are they doing this for war with other countries, or, you know, are we preparing for a higher form of war?
Well, which one of the presidents? I forget which one it was. Might have been Nixon. Might have been. One of them brought out something called the Star Wars project, which was looking into sort of space weapons for the occurrence where aliens would attack or whatever. And they had things like they used to say that the satellites which are in space have got, you know, what some of them are weaponized, like and there was, you know, they used to try and create laser beams and energy weapons and whatnot. When we get to 9/11, mate, I'll present you with a theory about energy weapons, but I'm going to save it, and I'm going to make you watch something before it, so you know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, that sounds very interesting.
It is fascinating, mate.
The Star Wars program is still running, isn't it? And they changed the name of it.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called now.
I think they kind of, NASA just absorbed it, and this is where Men in Black and things have come from as well. And I think it was Reagan, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I think it was actually, because he was.
I can remember seeing him speak about it. But to be fair, Nixon did look a bit like Reagan, didn't he?
So apparently now it's called the Strategic Defense Initiative. It was changed. So it was called Operation Star Wars or something.
Yeah, the Star Wars program. I remember Reagan talking about that.
Yeah, so the site Area 51 began in 1955 as a test center, supposedly just for U-2 spy planes. And the U-2 spy plane was the one they used to send over the Soviet Union to try and see what they were up to and whatnot. And they would portray it as like a weather research plane. And that was how that was the first time their cover story was publicly exposed, because the Russians shot one down and obviously said, who sent this plane. And up until then, they'd portrayed it as a weather research plane. And then that's when they had to change their story to something different. One of the most bizarre, maybe, depends who you speak to, conspiracy theories about Area 51. This lady called Annie Jacobson in 2011, I think it was 2010. She thinks that the site was the center of like a U.S. cover-up that went into motion following the crash in Roswell. She claimed the UFO from Roswell was a Soviet Union craft, which was piloted by genetically engineered children to make people think that it was an alien craft in order to spread fear within America. In this theory, Area 51 was like a storage site for this Soviet ship, and then the remains of the crew. And she claimed that like these kids had genetic modification that had been carried out by Joseph Mengele, the Nazi scientist. Did all the experiments on like the twins and stuff in the World War II. So like that's pretty wild. Like that's wild even for now. But if you think of that in like 1947, it's almost unthinkable. Do you know what I mean?
It's too unbelievable for back then.
But the Russians, man, people just write them off as crazy. Like I just think they're ahead of the curve.
When it comes to cyber technology and things, Russia are eons ahead of everyone. I remember seeing a documentary the other night, and something like the top 10 cyber criminals in the world are from Russia.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like the thing with Russia is, I think they're happy for people to think like Putin's just a bit nuts, like, and Russians are crazy and whatever, because it almost underplays what they can do.
Yeah.
But if you notice, I don't think, like, whenever there's a bit of tension between Russia and America or Britain, they smooth it over real fast.
Oh yeah.
They don't mess about. And I mean, even with like North Korea, they let that drag out a bit, didn't they, for a bit before they sort of smoothed it out and got Trump and Kim Jong-un together to sort of
let it drag it out long enough for the whole world to realise how much of a prat Kim Jong-un is.
Yeah, they sort of let him hung himself out to dry in some ways, didn't they? They like just let him make threats. But yeah, it's so Russian, Soviet, especially in the Soviet Union era, when everything was a bit more secretive compared to what it is now. I mean, Russia's always, they're still quite secretive, but I think Soviet Union times they were a lot more secretive.
Oh yeah, there's still lots of secrets buried behind that iron curtain.
But like even like Area 51, even now, the US president is on a need-to-know basis and doesn't know like everything that's going on that site. Because I remember about when President Obama, he was the first US president to even comment about Area 51, like specifically, rather than just like a general sort of comment. And he made joking comments about the base during like an awards ceremony. And even the most powerful men in the world, and the president of the United States, they don't even know what's going on there, which tells me that there's stuff going on.
Especially now, would you trust Donald Trump with that amount of information?
Well, no, I probably wouldn't. But then, like, maybe I wouldn't have voted for him to be president, like, But whatever. Like, I'm not getting, not even going down that route. But like, I just find it mind-boggling that the leader of the free world, if you like, even he doesn't know what's going on there.
No. Is there only one person who knows everything that goes on there? There probably is, and he probably lives on the base and he'll never ever leave it.
Yeah, he's probably some major or some general in there who lives on site.
Giving up his life to run that base.
So some people think that the moon landing was filmed at Area 51. but they did, they did test the lunar rovers and the support systems and the atomic testing grounds next door. So, they did prepare for the moon voyages at Area 51. So I don't know whether it is a stretch for them to perhaps have staged it there, if they did indeed stage it.
Totally believable. I've been to Lanzarote to Mount Timon Fire. It's an active volcano basically, but the landscape of it is how you picture the moon. And when you're driving through it, it's as if you're driving through the moon. So yeah, and that's a real landscape. Imagine what they could do with synthetic, even back then. If they wanted to fake it, they could have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Easily.
But if America had have faked that, I think Russia would have gone all out to dispel it and prove it wrong. Which is one of the reasons I believe they did land on the moon. Because I think Russia would have proved that story wrong if it was wrong.
Sure about that. It's a tricky one. But going back to what I was saying about they fly the people in, I thought they flew them in like on a week, or they used to fly them in on a weekly basis. But apparently now, to keep the locals from suspecting anything strange is happening, because people don't know what's going on. Most of the bases are flown in on a daily basis from Vegas, which is around 90 miles away. On the planes, they're called Janet, which stands for just another non-existent terminal, and they fly them in. Bizarre. Yeah, so we touched on it briefly earlier. Obviously, the majority of people would have seen the Men in Black films, which some people like them, some people don't, whatever. But what people may not know is that there's actually been some strange sort of sightings and sort of witnesses of actual people who wear like black suits, black bowler hats, and they go and visit people who've had, they've seen UFOs or whatever, or they've been abducted, or they think they've been abducted, or whatever it may be, and they go and visit them, and they act really weird. So like as if, did you ever watch Fringe TV show?
Loved it.
It's awesome, innit? So like the Watchers,
yeah,
Old Dead. So they're based on them as well, where they've got like no expressions and no emotions. So in 1947, this guy called Harold Dahl claimed to have been warned not to talk about his alleged UFO sighting on Maui Island by a man in a black suit. And he was visited by these guys, and they acted really weird, as if they knew what he was going to say before he said it. And he referred to them as dynamic supernaturals with exotic facial features, and yeah, there's just a lot of stories, and there's actually some like clips, very short clips on like YouTube, like CCTV and stuff of like these guys who've just. It's a dodgy one. It's not something. There's not a lot of information about them. But it's a really weird one, because some of the people, particularly people who research UFOs, they've been visited by these people, and they say afterwards they've suffered like paranoid visions and sort of complex, like their blood pressure going up and down, as if something's happening to them, like a not mind reading, but like kind of like a psychic attack, I guess.
Yeah,
the best way to describe it. But that I see, out of all of it, none of it really scares me. But they find that terrifying. These two dudes just turn up to your house would have no badges or anything, would just be able to just impose their will on you without any sort of, without you having any say in it.
There's obviously secret government departments that deal with these sort of things, but I don't believe that much of it. I think, the story's been spun a bit too much with this one.
Yeah, I don't know, because the only reason that I've got like this sort of slight thing of thinking, well, yeah, I wouldn't say I believe it, but like I wouldn't be surprised if someone told me, oh yeah, it is actually true, is all the work that the US government did on like trying to do time travel and mind control experiments, and trying to do an experiment with like LSD and sensory chambers to try and get people to sort of access their psychic abilities and all this type of thing. Now, they were doing that in like the 70s, maybe even earlier. So like, if they got that to work, or if they found a way to do it, any of it, I don't believe that they would have told us. Do you know what I mean? I think they would keep it to themselves.
But I think that is a secret. I think it's a secret that's too big to be kept a secret.
Not necessarily, though, because only a handful of people, and the people who did the tests, what was his name? Andy Bashago, his name was. He was like a whistleblower for this thing, or these experiments, and he reckons that he was sent back in time from this chair called the Montauk chair.
Yeah,
and he's
ringing bells.
He's in like some famous picture or something, which I'm sure people have seen, and some people say that they've debunked it and whatever. And obviously, you had things like the Philadelphia Project with the ship disappearing and reappearing with like people stuck in the walls and stuff. So I've got no doubt that they've tried to achieve these things. My doubt is whether they achieved them or not. And I find it hard to believe, because we still haven't had we don't have real superheroes or psychics and things like that. So which makes me think that, if they had a load of psychics, for instance, or people who could use their minds to read minds or whatever it may be, one of them would have blown the whistle at some point, or one of their relatives, or somebody. Do you know what I mean? This, like, I think you're right. It's too big of a thing to just know when to talk even a little bit.
But word can slip out, but word can also, that word can be stopped very, very quickly. Say an accident happened to someone, whatever it might be, it stopped the others from talking. And then nobody would ever know anyway. If
they didn't want to make those people disappear, they can also just very, very easily get that person sort of sectioned, make them out to be crazy, plant a few newspaper stories, and before you know it, that person is regarded as completely, like mentally ill or just completely out there within a week. Like the whole country or the whole world can think that, don't listen to that person, he's this, that, and the other type of thing.
The press can spin it any way they want, can't they? Let's be fair.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, we did Area 51. We've done Roswell. I think, mate, we might have to do a part 2 of Aliens and go on to I wanted to touch on like crop circles and animal mutilation and stuff like that.
That's what I want to go on to, but it's like you say, it's been a long one. This, I think we might need a part 2.
Yeah, so I think like we've just hit an hour and 5 now. So I think maybe what about if we, instead of going on to a different subject next week, we do part 2 next week.
Yeah.
And then move on to a different subject then the following week after that. Sound good to you?
Good for me.
So next week we'll do Aliens Part 2, peeps. We'll touch on crop circles, animal mutilation. I'm sure we'll come up with some other wild conspiracies as I just came up with psychics and fucking time travel. But, you know, not that I get sucked into it all or anything. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you to all the people who've subscribed to the channel, because we've picked up a load of subscribers over the last couple of days, especially people who follow on Twitter, Facebook. I encourage you all to spread the word. Tell your friends. Tell them all. Everyone you know, tell them. Come subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notified when we upload a video. Come follow us on Twitter at acecast_nation. You can follow Rhys at Shaw Celtic, and we're on Facebook, Ace Podcast Nation. Spread the word, subscribe, come say hi. For future, obviously next week we're going to do part 2 to the aliens. But if you want us to do a particular conspiracy theory show, send me a message or send us a message on the Facebook page, and we are more than happy to take suggestions and get in the comments. Tell us what you think of what we've talked about today. But until then, I'm Simon. That is Rhys. And we bid you farewell. Cheers.
Good night, God bless. See you soon, Si. Been a pleasure.
We are out.